want to welcome folks to the special Friday, June 21st meeting, which this is supposed to be a joint meeting of the Historical Commission and the Historic Districts Committee. This is about the preservation plan that is being developed by Heritage Strategies. First, would just like to assure us that we have a quorum. In order to do so, I am asking both Nancy Nelson and Lauren Meyer, for the purpose of this meeting, to be recognized as full members. And if they each would state that they're present.
Nancy Nelson, present, and I am not Michael Lawson.
Yeah, got it.
Lauren Meyer, present.
Okay, and myself, Melissa Salfield, and I'm standing in as for our chair, Alan Bogosian, because he was unable to be here this morning. So with the introduction behind, I just would like to welcome our guests and our consultants, Elizabeth Watson and Peter Benton, and I'll have you, Elizabeth, start. I think we know we have a very long agenda, and we may, as we go along, kind of amend it as we go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I for one would like to get to the draft goals, but I spent a long time working on the focus groups. I just want to give you some highlights from that. We've done some analysis, and you're welcome to have the longer version where we've sort of taken everything that we recorded and sorted it according to some thoughts that we've had about how to organize all of this. The groups touched on a lot of resources. I think one of the things that this exercise has done is really get me into the mode of thinking about, the issues and challenges and recommendations. And I do think that the Indigenous Cultural Landscapes inventory that we talked about is going to be a good thing to do. I think people will be very supportive. One of the ideas that came out of talking with the natural resources was the idea of making sure that historically forested areas and other kinds of cultural landscapes with historic qualities are in MACRIS. We can take a first pass at looking at that and work with Anne maybe on some mapping, so where we combine some mapping to take a look at what that looks like. So I thought that was a really interesting piece. The natural resources people were very open to doing a lot with history, and they were interested in the sort of environmental review side of things, the sort of Section 106 and NEPA that we touched on, and realized that they don't know enough about some of this process, and there may be an opportunity for some training, which we could help with maybe, to just sort of give people an idea of how this whole system works. They just don't know. Nobody gets this information when they're trained for recreation or parks or natural resources. So they were very supportive of what you all are doing, and they want to do more. They talked about interpreting place through history. One comment that we got was, I'm not sure what to do with interiors as well as exteriors deserve consideration. That came from you guys. Is that a preservation restriction program that you would want to see? I don't know that you're going to find much support in the town for regulation.
So can you explain that? You mean what do you mean by the interior? That we would have jurisdiction over interior alterations, changes? What do you mean?
Well, I think just thinking of it as a resource type, interiors are getting lost because people are just saving the frame of the building and they're just tearing everything else out and rebuilding, even under your guidance or under the HDC's guidance, I would think. So I think, Nancy, it might have been you who actually said that.
I think it was, and yeah. I was not envisioning any kind of a regulatory function, but more informational. I think people just don't know what they're doing sometimes.
Yeah, and that touches on, several, you all and other groups as well talked about trying to get more information into the hands of property owners in the town in general, sort of a more beyond a charm campaign, but much more information about how to care for old buildings and that kind of thing.
Can I just say, apropos of that, I know that Anne is very keen on building out our webpage. I mean, ideally, I think I know she would like our own website, which I think in terms of the town we couldn't do, but one of the things that we have talked about, I know she's wants to do and has started, is building out resources for people. A former
Mhm.
member of the Historical Commission had started with Bob Gross and Ryan Hanley to informally meet with or try to gather people who are owners of historic properties and to develop guidelines for what does it mean to own a historic house? How do you care for an historic house? So that right up what you're discussing, that's exactly what there is interest in doing that.
We have new people on board. Do you see them?
Yes, so I would like to welcome, I know Dennis has taken a while. I know if he's got an issue. Dennis and Louise, thank you're here. We just started, so just Elizabeth has just started talking about kind of the highlights from the focus groups.
Yeah. The natural resources group also, we tracked through, and we told you a little bit like this back on the 23rd when we last met, but the natural resources group sort of tracked through several different types of resources. And we also talked about lands that might need to be protected. I'm not sure that any of that information should find its way into either our plan or definitely any kind of report on the focus groups, but they mentioned 9 Acre Corner, land behind MCI, which is along the river. There's a strip along the river that they felt it's in the hands right now of the Concord Housing Group. And there may be land behind Damon Mill that's also of interest. I think that kind of conversation really belongs in the open space and recreation plan. But we'll track that and keep thinking about it. The sort of most interesting comment there was that in North Concord, there's about 3,000 acres. This includes Great Meadows and Harbor Forest and some other things, but just a lot of land is protected and is large enough to be ecologically significant.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to really, if there's any way to focus efforts on protecting historic landscapes, we might combine that historic landscape, cultural landscape. You might focus first in that area to just make sure that anything that the historic preservation plan can do to support that emerging landscape, large landscape, would be a good thing to do.
So Lauren, just a second. Lauren, you had a question?
Yeah, if you can hear me, I'm so sorry about my voice. The only thing I would say is that it's a little bit contradictory because we're talking about getting some of these large landscapes, cultural landscapes into Macris. And in order to be in Macris, they need to be, historically significant in some way. Because that's an inventory of cultural resources. Right. So to not include them, to recommend them being in Macris, but to not include any recommendations related to landscape seems a little bit contradictory. In my mind.
Right. Well, in terms of which lands to protect, maybe we need to describe a process more than name sites. I think that could prove controversial.
Nancy?
What's the problem with doing that? I mean, you're not recommending that they be regulated or anything. You're just pointing out significance potentially.
True. And you all can guide me further.
MCI, I think Lauren first had the notion, I'm not sure who did, that an early historic resources survey and inventory for MCI might be something very important. I don't know if that's something you're steering away from or not, but I wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't.
Well, for example, I don't know, why is 9 Acre Corner not protected? It's a significant agricultural area as well as a cultural landscape. And is that because you have owners who don't wish to sell and are planning to, sell for development later on?
No, I mean, you're talking about Steve Verrill's land. Is that what you're referring to? Nancy, that would be what she's the 9 Acre Corner. I mean, it's in private hands.
Right.
Yeah, I can't bring up ownership in my brain for that area right now.
No.
Right.
So is it privately owned only?
Yes.
Is it an agricultural restriction?
No.
Why would it keep us from saying it's also historic? If it is.
It would not. It would not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I want to keep moving along, are there other highlights that you would want to share or before we move on?
Yeah, I think there was very little about funding. It was interesting. A fair number of folks said some things, especially in the tourism group, about balancing development and growth with conservation, seeking a common vision for resource needs and business needs, need to give some take. Again, the tourism group was really thinking about reaching audiences. There was a lot about messaging and marketing, maybe words that they wouldn't have used, but they were, interested in a lot of hidden history came out of that group. And, there is work to do on diversifying the experience, tell more inclusive stories, what you all have said also, but that came out of the Economic Vitality and Tourism group. So there's a lot about collaboration and communication. I think this touches on what you all said at the very beginning here about there's so many meetings in Concord. Meetings are one thing, but coordination and collaboration are another. So, one of the things that came up was that the separation of arts and culture and public history and HDC and CHC is something that to really try to break down silos and foster real understanding. They praised the Bridge for being a good local newspaper. There is a newsletter, the current newsletter. Is there someone who's doing a newsletter through tourism?
There are various, there's Living Concord, Next Door, and I suspect some other things, some parent-driven things, but Living Concord highlights mostly, I think, events. Correct me, you guys who may know what's going on, but
it looked like a calendar mostly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is a way to connect to other people about what's going on locally. That's
right.
Not just a committee meeting or not.
Yeah. A big one that was missing is that it faded with the pandemic, but maybe before that, it devolved into just the education coordinators at museums getting together. And they wondered if the CHC could facilitate such a collaborative. That was out of the education group. I think there's some hunger for that. And
can you flesh that out a little bit? I think that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it did. Your newsletter came up too, Melissa, your history forum. Is that something that could be enlarged perhaps through CHC rather than put all that on a volunteer?
But except part of the beauty of that is that we don't take notes and it's a free exchange of ideas. I want government in my face.
Right. And in fact, one of the points that the CHC made in those conversations is that you all ask, is there a way to share ideas more informally as a group? There's a challenge of needing to deliberate in public. So, and how do you participate in other boards? They're hard to cover. So you all are thinking about this already. And, just I think we need to think some more as a group with build recommendations around that idea. How create an inclusive, collaborative, how staff it. That was out of the education group. So that's a place to go, I think. There were some comments about how you do your work as HDC, how to avoid lawsuits was a question you had. I think we need to, work with the town on how you're protected already and what we need to, may need to recommend, if anything. Okay. There's a lot of planning we may need is a sort of a category a bucket that we created for that. And, it was a small conversation, but I thought significant, that the idea of maybe doing an arts and culture plan. And I concluded in just sort of looking at this long list, and it's all from the Tourism Economic Vitality group, of things that they don't know or want to know or worried about reconciling. What kinds of businesses would be successful? Can we benchmark Lexington? Can we understand customer patterns? What are some best practices? What can we learn from the last 10 years? These are all planners types of questions. It was a really good conversation. And our conclusion is that you need a tourism plan. I mean, we will do our best in this plan, and you all have really emphasized the need to, get our arms around tourism. And toward that end, one of the plans that we gave you a couple of plans that have tourism plans in them that we have done. So you might want to look at
Which ones? Sorry, which one?
Yeah,
Excuse me,
Somerset County, New Jersey, there's a tourism plan there. And I think we may not have included the document itself. There's 4 volumes with that document, but we gave you the summary. If you're interested in seeing the actual, we can do that as well. I'll check that list. And the other was Freedom's Way, actually. I think we like what we did for Freedom's Way. I'm having brunch tomorrow with a good friend who's a Main Street person, and I'm a little surprised that you all don't have a Main Street program. I think that's because the requirement in most places is that you have a full-time person that you pay for that, and that's a bit much. But sort of
Could you explain that just a little bit?
What's that mean? Yeah.
What is it?
Sure. The Main Street program is, it's been around since 1976. The National Trust pioneered it with 3 towns across the Midwest, and they looked at how can you, effectively, it's the way of thinking about how do you take small towns and adapt them to sort of modern needs. It's almost an adaptive use of a whole downtown.
Oh,
How do you think about the business mix and promotion and fixing buildings up, getting more investment? And there are 2,000 communities under this program now across the country. It's probably, outside of the historic tax credits, which actually came later, it's probably the most successful historic preservation technique. I don't know if Peter would want to nominate something else, but it really has made a difference in all these small towns. They were just really lagging, and they were, dealing with malls at the time. And I know it looks sort of normal and organic now to think that small towns understand who they are and what they're doing, and Concord is doing it all. But there's to sort of be more active about who you are and how you're doing it. It's a really great program, and it'd probably be worth having someone come in and just talk to the business community about it, and help, because it maybe isn't a tourism plan so much as having more focus on it. And it's good that you've got the Economic Vitality Committee now, and I think that's going to be help you lead through that. We saw some, I'm going to keep moving because I know we want to do this.
Well, I just see Luis has a question. I just want to let Luis ask his question.
Sure. Thank
Yes,
you.
I just wanted to emphasize that in my opinion, in Concord, we have, if we don't already have the resources to have a very assertive historic identity, we have all the resources in place. Proof of that is the meeting that we're having right now.
Yeah.
But there are some very strong weak points, or very significant weak points, to phrase it correctly, where all of our efforts fall apart completely. And I think that one of them is an example that we're seeing at this very moment, which is the complete lack of ability that our commissions have to enforce our own regulations.
Yeah.
We have, and I think that that's something that we really need to focus as a matter of immediate practicality, and not as a matter of a strategy. You see, I think that we're talking about a very good strategy here, and I think that we have a good strategy. But there are some matters that are strictly practical. You see, we have a real estate developer which completely flaunted all the regulations of the Historic Districts Commission, that it's flaunting them right now, and he does not care. And there's absolutely nothing that we can do about it. You see, I think that that's something that we need to tackle head on.
So nothing that you can do about it, but the town has enforcement powers. You can stop work. What?
Well, people who break the rules are a little smarter than, you see, what we see right now. It's actually 2 sculptures that have been placed in front of a very public historic way, which had never been approved by anybody. We have a house that was extensively renovated on the back from a public way, from which there's no approval from the Historic Districts Commission. And this person was called to the attention of the Historic Districts Commission, and he came out twice. He made a mockery of the process. He was sent back home saying, you know, please make a formal presentation, which is to the standards of this commission. And then he never came back. He just finished all the work that he was doing and then put a big fence. No, so nobody can see it from the street, but it certainly can see it from the other side of the public way. So in both, and then he put 2 sculptures on the front after he had been asked to remove a sculpture of an elephant. Now, all these things are in our face. You see, he's making a mockery of the process, and there's absolutely nothing that we as a commission can do.
Yeah, so Anne?
Right, so I've been in touch with him, and I'll get back in touch with him to
Yeah.
make sure that he does follow through. Yeah.
You see,
Dennis?
I'm sorry to interject before Dennis, but you know, this is the example. You see, we have our historic preservationists. You see, we have a town planner that has a master's in historic preservation and architectural history, that it's being a policeman, you know. And it's trying to tell somebody who is not going to, you know, in my opinion, from a human standpoint, he's not going to pay any attention to her. And there she is to say, well, I know that she's been talking to him for 6 months. I did myself. It's what
Dennis?
happened. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Dennis. I think Dennis has a chance.
The key to all of this is the select board. They're the ones we need to
Yes.
get to. First of all, we have to have an honest discussion about how we deal with problems like the 2 dogs, but a more important one is Lowell Road, where we were cut out of the process once it became a lawsuit. So what is our role, and what is the enforcement, and what is the select board going to do about it? And the select board is also key to the tourism plan. And that is that this is a community that really has the love-hate relationship with tourism. And that tourists clogged down the downtown. I couldn't get to the hardware store the other day for all these people clogging up the downtown. And we have a fairly healthy downtown, so no one sees a need to really deal with it. But the key thing is that, and this came from our meeting with Cameron, who's our liaison with the select board, and he pointed out to us that it used to be that 90% of the tax income of the town came from residential and 10% for businesses. Now it's down, and I think with Welch's leaving, it's probably down to 4 or 5% comes from something outside of residential. And if you look at where the taxes are going to go up incrementally, I think the select board needs a real conversation about what we do about improving other bases than residential in the community. So this really, all of this falls on the select board to deal with these problems, and they really haven't.
Yeah, you know, it's crossed my mind that, you know, you all are, that people are praising the small town feel. You're a small town in the way you're approaching these issues, but you're a big business. You know, I mean, in terms of the resources that you have, and in terms of the visitation that you have, and the reputation that you have, and we need to reconcile that. And I think that's kind of one of my overwhelming feelings about looking at all of this right now, is that you know, you sort of have this really great, well-organized committees, but who's talking to each other, and how is the town reinforcing you and helping you to collaborate? Why is it going to have to fall all on CHC? You know, there's just a lot of sort of town culture that I'm not sure how much the plan's going to get to that, but we can certainly have these conversations, get as much as we can into the plan, and train you guys up to have these conversations. And I think the remark that Luis just made about using Anne to be a policeman is one not to forget. I mean, this is, you know, there are inspectors, there are processes. Those
Get you a gun,
processes,
Anne.
yeah. You know?
Well,
If she's going to be a policeman, at least it needs to be clarified what her powers are.
Is that in your job description?
I'm trying to build positive relationships and work on it that way.
Of course, of course.
but, yeah.
And
Well,
you always, you should be able to help head off the worst of it. But then when it is getting to the level that Luis is describing, somebody else has to have the hammer. It doesn't need to be you.
Well, yeah, we've actually, the Historical Commission, we've run into this, not as severely, I think, but when a demo, you know, Nancy, you remember somebody over in the Bedford, off Bedford Road anyways, they tore down the house. I think, you know, the fine is something like $300. Well, that doesn't, I mean, that's nothing. You know, it's just 3 bags of groceries. It's nothing. So we have no power really either. the demolition delay law, we know really doesn't have power. But I'd like us to kind of move on because we still have a fair amount to go. And this, you know, this has generated a lot of concerns that we can pursue. I think you wanted
Listen,
to.
I'm going to be like,
Go ahead.
like Luis, and add just one more thing. And
Yep.
that is, this is the perfect time to do this because the town is spending a fortune for security on the 250th. And they think once that day is over, everybody's going to go away and no one's going to come here now. That's going to be heightened that this is the place where it all began. I think we need the plan needs to be sold as management as much as it is income for the
Yes.
town. And without a management plan, you know, we're in trouble. Sorry,
Also
I'll be
just-
quiet.
No, don't be quiet. I think the other thing is, you know, you've met with a lot of other people. We've not talked about meeting with the select board or even a few of them, or even who our liaison is. I don't even know who it is now.
Cameron.
Cameron,
Cameron.
He's ours too.
but
Okay,
we haven't met with him.
Right.
as a
Yeah.
commission.
okay, so that would be something to add to a
Our
meeting.
list.
At any rate, yeah, so I just like to.
Yeah, they definitely should be done. Yep.
Yeah, I just, just one thing to announce to everybody that today, I think this is right, Anne, right? That in the mail, is being sent out a survey to all households. So we've tried informally a variety of ways to get people to participate in the survey. Now the card has gone out to every household and hopefully we will get more responses. I know we have probably around close to 100 now, and this I hope will generate more. So then I just would like to go on to the draft goals, if you want to kind of talk about that.
Sure.
Just,
I'm just getting them up here. Let's see, can we share here? Let's see if this will work. Okay, you know, we took a crack at coming up with goals, and the interesting thing was that in doing it, we did it not referring to 2001 plan, and the sort of, they don't quite have goals, they have more sort of ways to organize recommendations. And so we looked at those, and those are the strategies. So we came up with these 5 goals, 5 goals to preserve historic places, buildings, and neighborhoods and landscapes that contribute to Concord's culture and unique character. And to engage Concord residents in expanding public appreciation for Concord's history, historic and cultural resources, and the benefits of historic preservation. To advance the interpretation of historic and cultural resources, cultivation of varied stories and audiences, and the experience of authenticity in this important heritage destination. Those are 2 different ways of talking about history, but I think in Concord, especially to talk about variety and audiences is important. To welcome visitors, we heard this several times, especially from the tourism vitality people, about being a welcoming community, to welcome visitors and learning about Concord's history, experiencing cultural landscapes, and understanding the work of historic preservation, which, you know, you all have a really great chance to talk about. How did you do it? You know, I mean, it's kind of like going into a museum and getting a little bit about the provenance. You know, why am I seeing this? And to sort of daylight that subtly, maybe, or not often, but enough. And then finally, to integrate preservation strategies and information into town government policy and procedures. That's pretty much straight out of your plan. So those are the 4, and I don't know that it's a good use of our time to go full bore into committee work on writing this. But we wanted to see where you thought we could improve this, or how would you like to proceed with these? This is something we can keep talking about, so we don't have to finish it today.
anyone? I mean, as far as I can tell, it covers it because there's, you know, there are kind of sub numbers under each of these, and there's a lot of work that goes to each of these 5 items, additional research. The 5th one, you know, but I'm very much interested in a kind of review of what are the town's policies, what are our tools that we have to encourage appropriate development. Are there tax programs that we could dangle in front of a developer to say, rather than demolish this house, renovate it, you know, as in the greenest house is the house that's already standing. I mean, I don't know. It just, I think the other thing is, well, these are goals. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot.
Well,
Other
and
things.
typically, although it's not really encouraged by Massachusetts Historical Commission, but we organize our actions around through our goals. You know, what are the things that we're going to do to make these things happen?
Yep.
And we can do some cross-cutting and get that in there. Yeah, Nancy.
I think this is really important, and it's a little bit pedestrian and mundane, but I think we should have a funding plan or something that addresses the fact that all these lofty goals, in order to participate in them and to make them happen, requires resources. And you know, there are various ways to get money, but putting something in the town budget every year for commissions, I don't know, Anne, how that happens, but I'd be very, very interested to know what the budgetary situation is for other historical commissions and historic district commissions, particularly related to the need for professional consultants, and to publish guidelines and booklets so we can distribute it to people who own historic structures. I mean, these things take money.
Yes, for today, for a goal, we could add another, and we've seen this in other plans, that assure adequate resources to carry out the intent of this plan.
Or
And
at
that's a
least, or at
general
least
goal.
identify them. I don't know.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
these are great goals, but who's going to do this? We are a volunteer commission. All of our committees are volunteer, and Anne is the one professional person who is a staff person, but she's got so much to do already, so she's not going to be advancing these goals. So,
Well, your job is going to be to pick some of the actions that are in this plan and
Right.
focus on.
Right.
And
Right.
this is a start at helping you understand how you think about focusing, you know. And I think these reflect the spirit of a lot of the conversations that we've had. I mean, I'm not going to say they're perfect because I think you all have to tune them up. Luis?
I was going to say that if all these the first 3 points that are in these suggested goals, that's something that we are sort of, that's what we do every day in our commissions. So both in the Historical Commission and the Historic Districts Commission. And so what is missing? You see, why are these becomes goals? You see, I think that the only thing that's missing that we have not articulated them in terms of saying, this is exactly what we do, this is exactly what we're going to do. And what is the consequence of that? Well, that all these 3 goals can be interpreted in many different ways. And there's a particular group in town that has elected to interpret them in a way that it's attuned to their particular goals, you see. So we saw in December a warrant article where our directives and principles were going to be questioned, and there was going to be a commission to review the goals, etc., of the Historic Commission and the Historic District Commission. And that certainly doesn't have anything to do with preserving the history of the town or the structures of the town or the historic references of the town. It has to do with a particular ideological commitment. Therefore, what is that we need to do? What we need to do is to have our goals perfectly clearly stated. And you know, I agree that Anne is incredibly busy, but I know that she got some advice from Hermione Granger and that she has been able to divide herself into 2. And actually, there are 2 of her now. But I think that this is something that it's difficult, but it's not that difficult if we all get together, in the sense that, the Historic Commission, I'm sure that one member of the Historic Commission, it's gonna be very creative and articulate and say, this is what's going on, you see. And I know that at least from our conversations between Dennis and I know that we could sit together in an afternoon. I am partial to bringing some sherry or support, and then we can, implement a set of very specific goals, because that's the only way we have to sort of assert our purpose, assert the purpose of our existence in the town, and then deflect, unfortunately, all these partisan interests that are affecting us, and there's no question about it. Thank you.
Something.
Dennis?
I think someplace in here for public consumption, I think you need to add in one of these goals to improve quality of life, or I don't know if you want to put the income thing in there, but but there ought to be something that looks like a benefit to the everyday citizen. And I think that should be added in so that it starts them thinking positively about how we can contribute to the community beyond just preserving it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that.
Very, very important.
Something for them.
A critique that Peter and I can offer is, you notice, in fact, under current plan strategies in number 1, we simply have the sort of flat-footed to preserve historic places, buildings, neighborhoods, and landscapes that contribute to Concord's cultural heritage and unique character. Mission statement, but what's a goal? A goal would be to secure optimum protection for the most significant historic resources. And I think restoring that 2001 goal language might be worth doing. Sometimes we preach no net loss. I'm not sure that we can set that goal for Concord. That's a sad thing to say.
Not.
Yes. Other thoughts? Nancy, did you have your hand up?
I would just say, while I agree that proposed intervention that Luis refers to was incredibly annoying, I think the bigger thing behind that is that there are stories to tell that haven't really been told.
Yeah, which is
for us to I think you've got it here. If somewhere you've said varied, I think it would be helpful to some people if it said diverse stories.
Okay, we can do that.
I know what, I was incredibly upset by that, and I continue to be upset about the tactics that are being used continuously. And I don't want to ascribe that to all the people who think that our cultural heritage is richer and deeper than we maybe know.
Well, and one of the things that we might also put in here is in your mission statement, the CHC's mission statement, that is, sorry, Dennis, in the CHC's mission statement is research. And maybe we need to get that word in as well, thinking about that, because part of my concern is that the cherry picking that goes with trying to just achieve diversity may cause you to miss things that are maybe already in your inventories, just need more deep diving. That you have the ability to, you have a real well of information about historic resources that could tell you much more if you did the research, or encourage the research on the part of others.
That's the reason that I've suggested that we should have like an agenda, because one of the things that frustrates me as much as it frustrates Nancy is that we have been working very hard in order to get all this reference of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we have become like the complete pebble in the shoe for some applicants, because we didn't think that they were given recognition to all these references. But yet we still get attacked, because that's the only way to describe it, by particular interests that are basically using us. So I think that there has to be a very well articulated policy with a set of goals that says this is exactly what we do and this is exactly what we are trying to get to.
Yeah.
The
Well, and-
only other, can I just, I was just looking for it, in the original, grant that was written, there were certain goals, certain expectations, desires out of that. I just hope that I can't find it, so I can't measure them against what you've got here.
Yeah.
But I know one of the emphasis really was on researching the untold stories and
Yeah.
who are the people underrepresented or not at all. So,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I just finished reading Black Walden and I'm so jealous. I mean, you guys have, so much, and that book is from the 2000s. I mean, that's
yeah, a long time ago.
I mean, I'm sure there's more now. Ellen Garrison really wasn't mentioned, but she really didn't take us past emancipation. But it was really that you were doing so much work. I think we need to talk about reinforcing the telling of diverse stories. Don't act as if you're not already, because you sure are. I mean, you as a community now, speaking that way. Yeah.
Okay, so any other thoughts before we?
Yeah, there may be ways to sort of consolidate. I think 2 and 4 are similar, and
Okay.
maybe residents and visitors could be seen together as one, but there may be ways to,
Oh, good idea.
Good idea.
I think
Yeah.
that's really the only difference between the two is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
different sorts of audiences and just sort of connecting, like knowing who your audiences are and connecting the messages to those audiences.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
That may come back to us.
Well, that'll help us
As a
keep the
separate
number
goal.
of goals smaller if we add money. Yeah. Okay.
I
We'll
like
try
that.
again. We'll keep trying. This is
Yeah,
not something you have to have done, now, but it's helpful to begin as you mean to go on, and that's what this is.
So the next thing, Elizabeth has sent out, I don't know how, it's several plans that they've already produced, and I guess a couple that were not done by you for us to kind of to review and consider how we would like ours. If any of these are models for us, I don't know if others would like to kind of just jump in, or Elizabeth, you want to outline that, or should we just jump in?
Well, I think my impression of Concord's approach to doing these plans is that there's not a standard style, which it makes us happy. I mean, we like to think we don't really have a standard style. I mean, in terms of the way we think about each community, we, do things differently and craft things that are really tailored to the community. So we want your plan to feel right for Concord and for your work. It is your title is Concord Community-Wide Historic Preservation Plan. So it is for everybody. And so we need to make sure that it's going to be something that will be beautiful and usable and all of that. So in that regard, I guess I just would encourage you to look at those plans and tell us your favorite, why, pick one that you think is, the best of the 6 that you looked at. You don't have to look at all of them. Just dip in and, see how they handle things like vision and goals and mission, value statements. We often put principles into the plan. We haven't got those for you. We have sort of a almost standard group that we'd like to bring forward and have you all talk about. So there's, all of these different plans. It's very interesting to see how they are different. Not all of them, I think, do as much as we try to do in terms of that whole alignment with other town programs. And I think that's an important one here. So we really want to focus on that. It's not just, as you know, National Register, local historic districts, and sort of the standard stuff. Yours is much richer than that.
Anyone have any observations? I mean, I had read Lennox originally because I think when we'd asked for your request for qualifications, that was one of the ones you sent. and it's, you know, it's a town that's not unlike Concord in many ways.
And which one was that? I'm sorry.
Lennox.
Oh,
Lennox.
Lennox. Okay, sure. Oh, yeah. Actually, that was a good choice. Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that. I also kind of like Salem because it's because it was shorter.
Yes. Yes. I thought so
I had a
too. I
really
agree
short
with that.
attention span.
Yeah.
I mean, it got right to the point. Again, I'm really looking for your recommendations and things, action plan, so that this becomes our action steps for the next 10 years. I think one of the failures, to me, I don't kind of know what happened 20 years ago. I was on the historical commission then, but pretty young and not very smart. And they produced that. And then I don't know how much follow-up for any of the recommendations. There are plenty of recommendations. There were assignments for the HDC, for the historical commission. And I don't think much was done, sporadically was done, but not in a coordinated, as Luis says, not a coordinated fashion.
Well, let me make 2 points on that. One is that just the other day, I forget why I had to do this, but we finished a plan for Davidson. I'm not even sure, Peter, if we got that plan into our list. But I went back to find it for a friend who's visiting that area of North Carolina. That's why I was in there. And I stumbled onto, they actually have a page where we extract the actions, okay, and we put them in a table, and then they extracted that table and converted it to a progress sheet. And so it's there. I'll send you guys the link. It was very interesting to see that the client, I mean, they're very good planners there, very, diligent, and it was like you all, it was, a really big responsibility, very important, small town. And the other is to say something that we say to every single client, and that is that Robert's Rules of Order don't help strategy. And that is to say that if you create your meetings around your plan in some fashion, I mean, you still have to have old business and new business, and you have to do that. But what happens with these kinds of meetings, when you come in and you just, you have your reviews, whatever, and then you have sort of general reports, is you're kind of out there free floating. And, maybe you all have the plan in mind, but people who drop in and understand the organization don't see that. So context is all in historic preservation practice, and it goes right down to having your meetings.
That's very interesting to me.
Yes, and it's a new thought to most people too. This is the other thing, is I've been practicing for 40 years, and it's been a new idea every time. And but once you think about it and you just sort of use how we organize a plan to organize your thinking, how are we, so that every time you take an action, you understand how you are advancing the plan. And in fact, it will help with, going back into your minutes with the record keeping that you might want to do yearly on a report of how you've advanced the plan. And if you do an annual report, it should be, how's the plan coming? I was curious, I forget who said this, but in those focus groups, one person talked about, carrying out Envision Concord, almost as if it wasn't happening. And I was like, how are you connecting the plan back to how it is in Concord, And I don't want that to happen to the historic preservation plan.
Yeah, Nancy?
I just think this is really important too. There's no training given to chairs that I'm aware of. So I was adrift for a long time when I was chair of the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee. And I didn't know my authority or whatever. I didn't know how to organize a meeting. It was much easier when I was superintendent of the park, because I got to do it what I wanted to. Right. So some logical order in terms of holding the commission responsible and accountable for making progress on the things it says it believes in and wants. So I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, good. Well, and you do annual reports, but do you do annual presentation to the select board?
No.
They probably can't do that, but maybe you should insist. I don't know.
Yeah.
And-
Actually, I mentioned this to somebody just recently, a couple of years ago. It was the first time in my recollection in town, a select board member, she was chair, asked every committee and commission in the town of Concord to report on their progress of implementing their particular goals in Envision Concord. That was the long-range plan that you just referenced. It was the first time I can remember, and we were given the assignment, and then I forget, we had maybe a month, and then it was a huge committee. It was all done on Zoom because it was in the depths of COVID. But you had to have your Excel spreadsheet up there, and you had to say what you've done. And I thought it was excellent. I was very proud because we actually had something to say. But
Right.
it the implementation of that long range plan, there's no one really enforcing that either. The select board maybe would like to, but they've got always so many other issues that come before them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know, a budget is the plan, and every year the town has to pass a budget. And so I know in our community, I've actually worked with the community I live in. They didn't put me on the planning commission for my sins, but I did a strategic plan with them. And you know, they had the same thing going on with you, smaller number, but the town council and the mayor were sort of disconnected from the committees. And so I said, look, you know, when you do your budget, you need to bring in those committees and talk through budget. You know, budget is where it's real, you know, so just, it'd be nice if you did an annual report and came in at the end of the year and you reported on it. But if you tied that to saying, okay, and this is what we need for the resources that we need next year, looking back at the past budget and what you had then that all makes it even more real. And so that's what we really are trying to do here in Chestertown. And I think, you know, if that's not done as routinely in Concord, it may be a useful thing for you all, at least the two commissions, to go ahead and try to get that done for you, and maybe do it together so they see you together. And they understand that they have to understand the different roles.
Nancy?
Lauren, you were chair of both the Historical Commission and the Historic Districts Commission, right? What was your budget situation and process? I'm
Well,
curious how it works for other commissions.
We did actually create an annual work plan,
Yes.
and there was a list of tasks. It was quite long, and we made assignments about who was to do what, and we reviewed that at every meeting.
Yeah.
I thought as much.
Yeah. And it varied a bit because the planning staff in Belmont ebbed and flowed, you know, because staff tended to move around a bit. But on a good day, it worked really well. And there were some things that we did that had really clear milestones and deadlines, like establishing new local historic districts or bylaws that had to go to town meeting for approval. We had to meet the schedule. So, and we just did it, we didn't have a townwide preservation plan, but we just kind of created one. And that was just really a list of what we wanted to get accomplished. And then we literally gave assignments to individual
And when
members.
you say we, that's hand in glove with staff, right?
You know, a lot of the work was done by the commissions.
Okay.
Yeah, not so much by staff, but we were most effective when we had good support in in community development, the arm of planning that supported HDC, for sure.
Thank you.
This has been very helpful.
So I don't know if you want to talk. I know you just sent out the list of stakeholders list and the other
Yeah.
document.
Municipal
Yeah,
regulations. and
bylaws,
bylaws.
et cetera,
Yeah.
which probably nobody has had a chance to look at because it just came out. So, but I did want to ask a couple things about the September 12th meeting.
Yes.
Because, you know, I think we would like to do some publicity to generate interest in this and to because we really want people to attend. And then to think about what it is, how this meeting will run. How do we organize it? And another thought to open it up to the Historical Commission particularly is there interest, or what do you think about having a co-sponsor on this to help amplify our message and kind of gain that it's bigger, you know, it is townwide, so it's bigger than just us. I had originally tried to get it at the library and the Goodwin Forum, but it's already been booked for the September 12th. So it will be in the townhouse meeting room. So I had thought, geez, if it was at the library, we could ask the library if they would be one of our co-sponsors. The other entity might be the League of Women Voters. I just, your thoughts about that? They wouldn't have any editorial control. It would be our meeting. It would just be simply to notify to the community that this is for the whole town.
I think that's for you all to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you, by the way, for that wonderful plug you gave to the History Forum. That's a important
Yeah,
audience.
A few people responded to that, you know, so I filled out the form. And I'll bug them again. Anyway, it's just to think about it, but I do think we want to really have this well organized and engage the public effectively. So that, you know, if we actually do get an audience, we want them to leave energized by their experience.
Do you think that's a better place than like Harvey Wheeler where there's more parking?
I don't know. I just hate Harvey. Excuse me. I should.
There is more parking.
I think.
Well,
There-
at night though, there's probably more in the lots that are close by.
I mean, it's going to be from 7 to 9.
Yeah,
I think on a Thursday night.
you have to have refreshments.
Yeah.
You do. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we'll figure that out. But it's, you know, the Minuteman Media, it's easier for them to set up. It's a lot of the materials, stuff's already
Okay.
right there. Because I also thought, you know, we will Zoom this so that people who cannot come can participate
Oh,
from
that's
home.
great.
So anyway, if you just would think about that, would it be a better idea, or do we just stick with it just as ourselves? I don't know. You know, and also kind of an agenda. I mean, maybe this is an opportunity to ask Cameron if he would help welcome people as our select board liaison.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think that, you know, getting the imprimatur of select board is important.
And other interested select board members.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I'd invite them all, but given if he is our,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, I get it. Perfect.
anyway, so.
Well, we will put that on the top of the agenda for next time.
It
And-
needs further discussion, but yeah, a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, you know, again, I would really hope that we can get a good number of people to attend.
Mhm.
I would worry a little bit about League of Women Voters sending a signal that we think this is political. I know that they're apolitical in their own.
Yeah, and it's
beautiful
not, but yeah, good
Um,
point, because it's not
yeah.
political.
way. Yeah,
Good point.
yeah,
That's why I'm really sorry we couldn't have done it at the library, because that was a perfect.
yeah.
I'm going to try the December 2nd one, which would be the next public one. I will try to see if we can do it at the
Okay.
library. Any other, Nance?
I have a question. I'm trying to raise my hand before I talk. The draft list of municipal bylaws, et cetera, and the stakeholders list were referenced. Are they on the historical commission site now?
Oh, did you not get, or maybe it just came to me, Alan and Ann?
I think it just came to you.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
right.
okay,
Yeah,
that's all.
it's very short. It's a checklist,
That's
basically.
fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
great.
mean, yeah, there will be a document for you to read if you wish, but they at least let you see if there's anything you think is missing or reorganize. And I think, Anne, it it's short enough that, you know, anybody wants to send a comment back would be fine.
It's a list of our current bylaws and regs, right? So it's hard to
Yes,
just imagine.
there's a couple of,
what's missing.
right. I know, there's a couple of tables that tell you the bylaws that are partly being, but it's basically an outline of saying how we're going to write, or how we are writing the giant report that Massachusetts Historical Commission expects as part of this project.
And
Yeah.
do you have favorite laws, regulations, or, you know, management structures that you're particularly excited about? So maybe at some point in time, not today, because that's a hard question.
That should be part of the recommendations. Yeah.
But it would be good to know
Yeah.
what you think really is more effective that we could be
Yeah. The enforcement thing weighs on me.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, Peter, if you've got an impression at this point. Yeah, we're working. There's
Keep
a
that in
lot.
mind.
But
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting. It's like for your recommendations, I'm not sure I see anything that is, I mean, perhaps other than enlarging historic districts, that would sort of be, what would you call major? You know, a lot more National Register, you know, a lot more research and supporting the development of diverse stories. So yeah, I mean, thinking about all of Concord and, you know, what is it, metamorphosis, I was looking for the right word, metamorphosis from rural to something else, and how you manage that change townwide. We have one or two ideas, but there's an awful lot of vigilance that's involved in this. That's just what you're doing already. You know, eternal vigilance is the price of preservation.
I think we're trying to place preservation values in the missions of other stakeholder entities.
Yeah.
And so and just relating to something you were talking about before, it's not all on you. It's trying, and your job is to get your fingers in everybody else's business. And
Okay,
making sure that historic preservation is a community-wide value, and that other entities are, painting the fence for you.
Well, and with that regard, and this Peter and I talked, what he just said it was sort of rehearsed with us, MCI, and the fact that you are not on the town committee, putting your nose into that business sooner rather than later. It's not us to tell you how to do it. And it's really, I don't know how much it'll be in the plan, you'll have to tell us, but it is time to make sure that your values are inserted. You don't have to be on that committee, but you sure have to be heard. And the other thing is that if MHC is not already involved in this process, sic them on that process, because if that's a state agency, NCI is a state agency, this is state to state, get MHC, make sure they understand what's going on.
Oh.
They've got to be involved.
Gotta be.
So
I mean, at the very least, MHC could require better, updated inventory and whatever. Lauren, did you have something?
I totally agree with that, because, in the disposition process, all state agencies should have, I know that MCI will be handled maybe legislatively and slightly differently, but all state agencies should have the opportunity to weigh in. And the one thing that we haven't really talked about is tax credits. And by getting properties identified at MCI, if there are any that are significant, that are eligible for listing on the National Register, they would be eligible for tax credits. And that could be a, help to a future developer, or at least help with preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also reinforces the Historical Commission idea to request an inventory.
Doesn't the state state version of 106, wouldn't that apply in this?
It does, but that's kind of later in the process.
Is
I
it?
mean,
Oh.
you know, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that kicks in when there are projects.
right.
Oh,
Right.
not
Yeah.
Before
evaluation.
projects,
So it'll
Before-
kick in later.
yeah.
late.
And
Well, not too late necessarily, but that project intervention will go so much more smoothly if it's all teed up beforehand, you know,
Yeah.
with the inventory done properly, all the communications and relationships built in among those agencies. It's all, you know, it'll be so much better if, you know, it's better for the towns. Town needs to understand, you're not just sticking your nose in to be sticking your nose in, you're sticking your nose in to make things go smoothly.
No, I mean, I think the town knows, I mean, the people I've talked to on select board know that. I don't know
Good.
if it's,
Yeah.
you know, does anybody know whether this task force is even convened or is an advisory group? Have they convened?
Don't know-
Actually,
Don't know much about it.
I have
No.
the list here
I
somewhere.
didn't-
Dennis, do you know whether they have?
No,
Okay. Um.
Hmm.
I'll
Well,
find
I
out.
think that's something that you all can be working on while
Something
we're
to
working on
know.
your plan.
I mean,
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
for the next historical topics forum, I asked a woman named Diane Strasberg, who was a former chair of the Historical Commission. So her master's thesis while she was at Harvard was on MCI Concord
Oh,
and the history of it. So I've sent to her, I've asked her if she'd speak. She's going to. I sent to her the charge that was given to the task or this advisory group. So that maybe she would kind of flag in her comments a little bit more. You know, we did have one person come to talk to us about it, but Diane was not available. So this is to me a much more extensive history about the site and its, you know, the structure and, you know, the cultural history, all the above.
that sounds like a lecture to be sponsored to present to the entire town at some point. Maybe not for, you know, not the
Well,
forum
we'll see
itself.
how we'll
Oh,
see.
yeah, That'd be
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. I have a doctor's appointment. So I need to say goodbye if there's anything further that Peter and I can do.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Oh, God.
Yes, it always is. That's the problem.
I'm
Yeah,
away very tired and it's only noontime.
right, right.
Thank
Well-
you very much. So I guess we don't need to adjourn. The next meeting of this is, I think, July 26th, but we all have our other meetings before that.